Hello dear World of Warcraft friends, welcome back to a new video on my channel. Today we are finally settling which talents in the Omnium Folio are actually the best. Because by now, in week 4, it has become clear that pretty much every spec wants to take the same talent in the first row every time. And by now, it's also clear which talents in the last row are roughly the best. Yes, we'll only have that next week, but it's already interesting. We'll review it, and if you've been using the orbs because they were recommended for healers, you should get used to not playing them anymore since you won't want to use them in the future. And the reason behind it is actually pretty simple, so let's get into the whole story. I simulated, searched, and checked it out for you. If you appreciate my work, please leave a like and especially subscribe. It's free and helps me a lot. And with that, let's get started. All in all, don't be surprised. I don't have the 4th talent point yet. I haven't been able to do the quest line so far. All in all, the 4th point becomes available this week, and that makes it obvious which talent in the first row you want to play now. Namely, whether you're a healer, a tank, or a DPS, you want to have the Rune of Unleashed Fire. That's because if you've taken this talent, the efficiency of this buff here is increased many times over. All in all, the final row gives you 78 of the secondary stat of your choice for 10 seconds. Multiple charges of this can overlap, and of course you want to keep this buff active for as long as possible if you can. If you look at these orbs here, it also says that you can accumulate up to 5 of them when you're out of combat. Otherwise, you get a new orb every 10 seconds. That means this buff is refreshed every 10 seconds. In other words, that's 6 activations per minute, because you can't get this orb more than once every 10 seconds. And I also tested and checked there because I thought maybe, okay, at the beginning, if you throw out 5 orbs, it might count as a 5-fold activation. But that's apparently not the case. And that makes the question of whether these orbs might actually be really cool pretty much obsolete. But why, for what reason, is this flame or the Rune of Unleashed Fire better now? That's because it procs much more often. As I already said, you have an activation here every 10 seconds, so about 6 activations per minute. With the Rune of Unleashed Fire, and I've searched through logs and even simmed it myself, it's about 9 activations per minute. So that means, yeah, 50% more procs than this whole orb setup, and that's pretty strong at this point. You can see it here as well. We've been fighting for 40 seconds now. One activation of these orbs, well, we used more at the beginning, but if you take out the start, it was 4 orbs in these 40 seconds or 4 activations. Fire just gets more activations out of it. The whole thing is even more useful in multi-target situations. Because with the next talent row, the 3rd one, this Rune of Fire prefers enemies that aren't already affected by this fire. So that means the chance that it will proc on even more enemies in multi-target situations is definitely there. And yeah, with that, you basically already have your answer. 9 procs per minute means this buff is activated 9 times per minute compared to usually 6 times with the orbs. That means you get around 210 more secondary stats just by using this Rune of Fire. And that's definitely quite worthwhile. Regarding the background you choose here, that actually depends a bit. Of course, you should first pick whatever your best stat is. However, for example, with my Demon Hunter, theoretically Mastery is the best. But in practice, you actually get a bit more benefit from haste procs than from pure Mastery procs. You would have to simulate the whole thing for yourself again if you want or need a clear answer. However, it's not always as simple as it might seem. But yes, as I said, all these things can overlap. That means in the best case, you'll very often have 2 stacks of them active. In other words, for a short time, there are sometimes almost 150 or a little over 150 secondary stats active. And that's really strong. That just has to be said at this point. Yeah, if you want to know what you should pick there, I can recommend this site to you. This is the official guide for it from Wowhead. Now here, for example, with the Shaman, crit is my best stat there, so you take crit. For the Boomkin, crit is also recommended. But in the end, I'll link this page for you here. No matter which class you play, you can click on it today, in 2 weeks, or in 4 days. As soon as you click on it, say Retribution Paladin, the requirements here for the Omnium Folio are updated for all classes. And here we can also see everyone is playing with the Rune of Unleashed Fire. Everyone is playing stat X here. Take a look at what works best for you. And in the final week, you probably take damage and healing. Your core rune is increased by 100, so it looks like that's the best value you can get. With the tanks, on the other hand, it seems like people seem to be collecting these cores. I have to honestly say I haven't found the answer as to why that's the case. So for most tanks, the Rune of Unleashed Fire is still recommended, but for some, the Void Orb is still included. I could imagine that it's more likely a mistake made by the guide writer. And all in all, you should still take the Rune of Fire. It definitely makes sense from my point of view. Because even for tanks, if you can get 3 more procs per minute, that already sounds pretty desirable to me. Because the damage from these orbs alone is really negligible now. So I would say in 98% of cases, you play the Rune of Fire to get the most procs from it. If you're unsure here, definitely play the stat that's best for you. Otherwise, feel free to run a simulation. And in the last week, it seems like everything points to taking this Rune of Overload. Exactly. And with that, thank you very much for watching. I hope this helped you out a little bit. If it did, feel free to leave a like and subscribe. See you in the next video. Take care.